I don't have to tell you guys, but Warhammer 3 is fast approaching. The big on Rogue Idol still can't see it yet, no matter how hard he tries. It's waiting just over the horizon, taunting, teasing, and it makes him angry. But that's his deep, dark secret. He's always angry, and today he'll blow off a hell of a lot of steam against Thoric Ironbrow and the Dwarfs. This was a super good battle against two high-level opponents, so you might want to bust out the snacks and strap in for this one, because it's going to be a bumpy ride with a lot of swings. Kark commands Greenskins, Eltharion Shade commands Dawi, and Kark really is one of the biggest proponents of Rogue Idols in Warhammer 2. I mean, it's a super cool unit to be fair, but we've casted some of his Rogue Idol gameplay before, and we said it there as well. This is a dangerous pick against the Dwarfs, as massive, incredibly expensive single entity monsters often are. If you misplace it, or your opponent outpicks you, it will literally lose you the game outright, but it also has insane carry potential and can mulch half an army without breaking a sweat, given the right situation. Quite a strange Gobbo build from Kark in this one. Two naked and afraid goblin big bosses with They Need Stabbin', and if you cycle between those two, you can keep an enemy lord pretty much permanently debuffed, and you can shank them pretty good. Bunch of nasty skulkers, 3 doom divers, and Azhag the Slaughterer on Skullmuncha, which is another option Kark absolutely loves in this matchup. Strips him down to pretty much just Spirit Leech, flies around with his 110 speed, draining the life from artillery crews and whatever essential units are in need of destruction. Tons of utility in this matchup, which is weird because it's not often you see dragons or dragon-type monsters against dwarfs. Across the way come the stout, proud Dawi, led by their Lord Thoric Ironbrow, with 2 Trollhammer Torpedo Iron Drakes and their 24 bonus first large. And if they get in range of the Rogue Idol and have maybe 15 seconds of uninterrupted shooting, it's GG for the Hulk. Their DPS against big monsters like that is incredible. It's also going to be really hard for them to get into range against Doom Divers and Spirit Leeches. Thoric himself has Wrath and Ruin, Rune of Doom, and Slowness, which will be super useful against the Wyvern flying overhead. Just a really good lord in general. And besides that, 2 Slayers in the back, some Longbeards with great weapons, the Dawi of Dragonfire Pass, and Miners with blasting charges for clearing out the chaff. And the weird thing about this matchup is that the Dwarfs do need to worry about the Greenskins investing more in artillery than they do. Hammer of Gork, Doom Divers, Debigun, all these unit types can pound infantry into submission from range. So if you load in and realize you're outgunned, keep your cannon or goblob or whatever dwarf artillery you brought out of range of your opponent. Too often I see people try and take an artillery fight, they just have no hope of winning, just because they're in the mindset of having it shoot right at the start of the match. Save it, hold on to it, wheel it up when it's logical to do so. There's no getting around it. The opening stages of this battle will be all Greenskins, but a Rune of Slowness and a few shots on Azhag certainly aren't bad, and he'll go down to about, he'll lose about 1/4 of his health. But yeah, the creeping barrage has commenced, and it smells like wah. Kark really has his pick and litter in terms of what he wants to shoot at here. Killing the miners is good, so they can't clear his chaff quickly, and he does have a lot of nasty skulkers, which do not fare well when they're exploded by blasting charges. Killing the Longbeards is good because it's better value per shot, and I think this will be the last ride for many of these goblins, but what a glorious end it shall be. When I get old and gray, before I die from cancer or Alzheimer's or whatever terrible fate awaits me, I'm going to tell my family to strap me into a Doom Diver and send me flying over a mountain without a parachute. That's a much better and quicker end, don't you think? Way better way to go. These Gobbos are champions, and they're taking some elite Dawi with them. Trollhammer Torpedoes are the opening target, but yeah, the Miners with blasting charges are also a very good one to get rid of because they're such a big threat to those nasty skulkers and the rest of the goblin line. There are a few Savage Orc Air Boys in the back line for some harassing and skirmish power, but for the most part, the killing power will come from that Rogue Idol and from the Doom Divers themselves, and they're certainly making their presence felt in the early game here. Azhag, who's down to about he's lost about 1/3 of his health now, moving into the forest to use that as a line of sight blocker so that Trollhammer Torpedoes and cannons can't fire in, and as I said, keeping that cannon back so the Goblin Doom Divers don't instantly take it out is a really smart play. And the threat of Azhag on Skullmuncha will force those Slayers to stay in reserve to defend it. So here we go. Greenskins are into melee range now, and Miners with their blasting charges about to eviscerate them on the approach. One of my favorite things to watch from a Dawi player is great Miners with blasting charge play, and this is perfect. Yes, they're just Gobbos, but if you can instantly one-shot all their chaff, then that exposes the core of their infantry line. And normally that would be really good, especially if the Greenskins have Black Orcs or Big Guns or something more heavy on the investment in the foot troop category. Here, though, it is pretty much just gobos, and so clearing that chaff is important because you need to get into the Doom Divers and the Rogue Idol, but it won't expose the Black Orc core or the more elite center of this Greenskins line. And that's why Thorak is so strong in a Dwarf rush, where you need to cut through quickly. Rune of Doom is the Dwarf answer to Waaagh, but I'm not expecting much from these Iron Drakes who are being focus fired by artillery and Spirit Leech by Azhag out on the flank. And Waaagh has activated for Kark and the Greenskins here, so those Nasty Skulkers get mean. They get up to 62 melee attack with a hefty dose of AP. They will easily beat up on Dwarf Warriors and certain other mid to low tier Dwarf units while that is active. So watch for that. A lot of melee power in this Greenskins build, despite being quite squishy. Nasty Skulkers are quite good against Dwarfs in a lot of situations, especially if they can get flanking charges like this one, but nice support play from the Dawi will allow those blasting charges to cover the flank and rear of these Longbeards, make sure that those armored units aren't getting AP in their buttholes. And here, Thorak Ironbrow coming in, ready to drop his Rune of Wrath and Ruin, and I love that new spell. It's a much cooler representation of that ability, and it's great for clearing chaff. I don't think it has a crazy amount of armor-piercing damage. I don't remember it doing much damage to Chosen or Black Orcs, for example, but if you see a bunch of Nasty Skulkers blobbed up around your units, drop it on that, clear out a bunch of chaff, and that should precipitate a rout over on that side. These Iron Drakes are done for. Final Spirit Leech and a couple munches from the Skull Muncha should be enough to finish them off for good and shatter them completely. And the Dwarfs are investing a lot over on their left flank, while Thorak might have bit off a bit more than he could chew and moved too far forward. They need stabbing activated, and now he's getting shanked in the back of the throne. He'll retreat and should be fine. He's got plenty of HP, but if they are given enough time, two Goblin Big Bosses alternating that melee defense and armor debuff could put the hurting on him if he doesn't get any help. Yeah, the Dwarfs have broken through on this side. Goblins about to rout, Warriors of Dragonfire pass, and the Longbeards pushing all the way towards those Doom Divers. They're going to ignore the big on Rogue Idol for now. I think that's the right play. He's hard to bring down. 12,000 HP is a large threshold to cut through, so you might as well go for the artillery first. It's doing more damage to you and is much easier to kill. Take those out first, then you can worry about the big scary single entity monster. And the nice thing about going all these goblins is that you can get Waaagh activated a lot. This is the second time already. We're only 5 minutes into the battle. If he had a more top-heavy army, which is a little bit ironic saying that because he does have the big on Rogue Idol, but he has so many gobos and enough bodies on the field that activating Waaagh has been a relatively simple task thus far. That was disappointing. Man, when I see a Rogue Idol clap his hands together, I want to see enemies explode. Missing the melee attack there, which is kind of hard mathematically. I mean, he's got 100 melee attack against infantry. So you don't see that too often. But yeah, for the most part, when he swings those boulder fists, a lot of Longbeards and Dwarf Warriors will die. And then, like Optimus Prime, he can suck his own body parts back up and reconnect himself to continue the beatdown. The Incredible Hulk is on the move, and he is smashing. Okay, so now things are beginning to open up. Now the Goblin Big Boss is overextended. Dwarf Warriors overlap the engagement, and Thorak Ironbrow is beating on him. In the background, Azhag on Skull Muncha, slowed by that Rune of Slowness, which cuts him down to around 60 speed, which is a huge difference. Dawi can shoot up 60 speed, no problem. They have a much more difficult time dealing with 110 speed like he has base. Nasty Skulkers continuing their fight, and Longbeards, well, you're in the wrong neighborhood. But this is what the Dwarfs have to do. Whenever a unit gets free, send it into that Rogue Idol and just try to tie it down, do whatever damage you can, get that armor-piercing value going their way. Like, you're going to have to grind it down over time. You can't just send everything at once because not all your units are going to be free at once, and you don't want it throwing any more boulders than it has to. I think both Goblin Big Bosses will die here. This is a bad situation for the heroes. They're not expensive. I think they're only like, hell, they might be 380 or 400 or something if they only have They Need Stabbing. I mean, they're like 500 or 600 max if they're on spiders. But yeah, if you get them out appropriately, they're stupid cheap, and they need to have such an incredible debuff for such a cheap price that, I mean, if he loses both those Goblin Big Bosses there, it's not really a huge deal, and that might be why he felt comfortable just sending them into Thorak and doing whatever they could. Probably could have gotten a little bit more value out of them. Slayers are doing a great job being that backline sweeper, keeping that cannon crew active, healthy, and ready to fire in on Azhag and to big on Rogue Idol when they get a chance. Wyvern continuing to munch up on stuff, and look for Azhag to just be a serious threat in mid to late game as more and more units die, and it gets harder and harder to protect your most important stuff. The battlefield is completely spread out now. What started out as a pretty cohesive dwarf attack has just led to a Dawi diaspora. I mean, they are all over the battlefield right now, and I'd say that favors the Greenskins a bit more because they simply have more mobility. It's all down to Skullmuncha, all down to Azhag, and that Rogue Idol putting in some serious work here. The Doom Divers are actually still online, but Azhag will have to turn his attention to those cannon crews because they're free now. And they're beginning to fire at the Rogue Idol, and it can take some shots from it, but even 12,000 HP evaporates pretty quick if you're letting a cannon fire in and not really doing anything about it. Big claps. Easy claps coming in from the big on Rogue Idol. Dragonback Slayers, you would think, would mulch this engagement, right? This is what they want to do. They want to fight big monsters. But he's only down to half HP, and that's a large remaining amount of health. Spirit Leech ain't going to help the Dragonback Slayers out. Actually, quite good value, even despite their spell resistance. And he has, what, 24 bonus versus infantry, I think? So, the Dragonback Slayers just disappeared. It was like 3 or 4 swings. So much wave clear potential from this Rogue Idol, and the Slayers are gone. Entire unit is just straight up dead. Super well played from Kark there. His Spirit Leeches have been on point all game long, hitting the most important targets, except for the cannon. Normally, that's what the Wyvern wants to do. That's what Skullmuncher wants to do. That's what Azhag wants to do. He wants to Spirit Leech those cannon crews. He hasn't been able to do it yet, but he's on his way. While the Hulk continues his rampage, clearing up all this Dawi chaff. Slayers, dead. Longbeards, pancaked. They are all being smushed by the beast. But the problem is the Big Gun is isolated now. I mean, every single dwarf unit is swarming in his direction. This is what the dwarfs want. With Thorak coming in to support the rest of this infantry, it might be the end for the Colossus sooner rather than later. We'll see how that goes. Another nice Rune of Slowness from Eltharion Shades. Cutting down on that momentum and mobility from Skullmuncha, making it harder for him to close the gap, but he will do so. Slayers on the pursuit, but they might be a teeny bit too late here. I would imagine at least one cannon will be destroyed in this engagement. We'll see. He's operating on borrowed time here. Slayers are really close behind and closing in even faster. But yeah, looks like the Colossus might drop. And there's a lot of dwarfs around him and Thorak coming in too. Bro, you gotta be careful of the Rogue Idol once he drops low. His weapon strength will skyrocket over 1,000 due to rock and rubble. His passive, it comes in 3 separate stages, and the final one just makes him hit like a freaking Mack truck, dude. Not that he doesn't already, but he gets legitimately terrifying once his weapon strength is over 1,000, as you would expect. And there aren't that many Dawi. They're getting punted. Oh no, Thorak. Be careful, my friends. Everything is terror routing, and Thorak not looking healthy. Dung Bomb popped from the Nasty Skulkers. Thorak can no longer run away. Nice Rune of Wrath and Ruin to clear it out, but Thorak can't run now. He is committed to this engagement. He should not turn his back. And now he must put the Dawi on his against this freak of nature. Thorak just routed. The belly flop of doom. Thorak's one hit from death now. I don't think the Rogue Idol has missed yet in his fight with him. Oh my god, it's over for Thorak. He's done. The Anvil of Doom tossed aside like scrap metal. And the Lord has fallen and he can't get up. Someone get him life alert, please. Cannon routing off in the back, and it looks like Greenskins are in a commanding position now. because they pretty much only have Slayers. But let's see what can come back into the fold from the Dawi side of things. I expect the Longbeards will. They've got enough HP. And then armor piercing will be huge in the late game if they can return. Meanwhile, Azhag is playing with fire right now. His Slayer is so close. But he's done a great job back here. He has taken a lot of HP damage to those Warriors of Kara Kadrin. But it's worth it because the cannon's really by far the biggest threat to the Rogue Idol remaining. But is it worth taking this HP damage on your Wyvern? I mean, it only takes like 2 or 3 axe swings and you can already see that HP bar start to plummet. If they fully surround him, Azhag's dead in seconds. And that would have been a sick throw from downtown. He let him. Slayers decided to stop. That Hulk command actually saved some of their lives there. Very well played from Eltharion Shades. And at this point, he says, screw it. I can't defend my artillery crew anymore. I'm going for the Rogue Idol. Once that dies, Azhag will be forced to land. And then we can kill him with Slayers. So that's the big question, is how much damage can the Rogue Idol do to these Slayers before they close in? And once they are in melee, can he do what he did to the Dragonback Slayers a few minutes ago and finish them off with a few punches? Beautiful throw to get things kicked off. It did about 600 damage. Oh no. The Rogue Idol has routed. He needs that to come back. If the Longbeards can chase it to the edge of the map, this might be really hard for Kark to win. Because Skullmuncher will not fare well against Slayers. He can tear, or not tear route, but he can route those Longbeards. Of course, they are immune to psychology. Those aren't Longbeards. Those are Dwarf Warriors. So yeah, you can tear route them. My bad. I thought those were Longbeards for some reason. Oh no, this is bad news. Amazing sync kill animation from Skullmuncher. Azhag making his last stand, but oh my god, so much burst damage from that bonus for Slarge, and that's it. Azhag's done. Freeze frame it. Put it on your wall, Dawi. And strike one from the Book of Grudges. That's a huge win for the Dwarfs. Crazy ending there. I would have loved to see that Rogue Idol come back and see if it had what it takes to take out those Slayers. But I think a half HP unit of Slayers might have been too much for what remained on that Rogue Idol. They got 3,400 damage value that game. Kicked some serious ass. Really enjoy watching the unit every single time. It was microed very well. Stayed at range, used its artillery for the majority of the battle, and then when it had to go in, it pooped on stuff. That's what you love to see. This Greenskin build's really cool. I love this artillery style of play. It's not super common from the Greenskins, but usually when I see high-level players do it, it works out pretty well. And yeah, forcing the Dawi to come to you, especially before Thorik existed, was not a bad call. But when they got that Rune of Doom, it kind of changed the complexion of the matchup. And when you're seeing your Dwarf Warriors hit with plus 24 melee attack and potentially cause fear, that definitely changes your engagements against stuff like Nasty Skulkers. So, very well played to both players there. Love the Azhag play. His Spirit Leeches were on point all game long. His positioning with Azhag was really quite good, except for maybe the opening seconds. I don't know that he needed to take those cannon volleys at the start. Probably could have sailed behind those trees and Spirit Leech the Iron Drakes from range and not taken a fourth or a fifth of his HP bar from those triangle torpedoes and from the cannon. And that HP difference might have been the difference in the game, but overall, really well played from Kark and from Eltharion Shades. GG.